The first story is titled Former Manager Made My Life Hell and I Finally Got Her Fired. I was desperate to join a new job after my husband and I were both laid off last year. When I was offered a new role, I knew it would be a step down from what I was doing, but the manager and the team seemed great, and that part has not changed. However, since my manager Gary was so busy, he basically offloaded me to another manager, Jane. I was supposed to be the connection point between my team and Jane, but it quickly became Jane micromanaging me. She would ask me to work through lunch, move, cancel vacations, days, calls at 11 p.m. on weekends, and order me around on phone calls. She also made nasty comments about my weight and said I was big for my race. The list of personal slights so long that it filled 3 pages. I would talk back to her and she did not like that, and that provoked her more. I only stayed because we needed to pay the bills. Finally, I had a mental breakdown on a Friday afternoon after she yelled at me for something trivial about scheduling a meeting without including someone from her team who I didn't know about. I was dealing with a family tragedy and couldn't take it anymore. I told Gary about the situation with Jane, and he was sympathetic and not at all surprised considering half her team quit. He immediately offered to move me to a different team under him. I was thrilled. Well, turns out going to the new team didn't help. Jane continued to order me around from afar. When I ignored her emails, she came to my desk one day and started loudly talking about how I am not qualified for this role. Gary overheard and finally told her off, but the verbal abuse did not stop. After 2 months here, I abruptly wrote my resignation letter and stapled a list of Jane's offensive comments and CC'd everyone. Gary offered a bunch of accommodations to try to keep me, but seeing how she was still provoking from afar, I said the only way for me to stay would be for her to go, and he did not have the authority to let her go. Her manager was in a different country, and despite several HR complaints from at least 5 people, nothing was done. So I left, loudly and without shame, telling everyone exactly why I was leaving. Times were very bad for 3 months. There were nights we would eat slices of bread just so we could pay the mortgage and emergency expenses from a health crisis and a funeral. Even after he found a job, we were still catching up on bills, and still are. I spent months applying to 5 to 10 roles per day, sometimes over 20. Last month, I saw a public memo about a big shot from a former company joining the company I just left. I used to work with this guy closely and texted him a congrats, let me know if you need any insights on the new place. We had a quick call where I told him some ins and outs, where I thought they could innovate. After this call, he asked me to join the team as his chief of staff. I accepted. Imagine Jane's shock when we had our first all-hands call. All the VPs and above were asked to welcome the new big shot in a giant conference room. In Big Shot's speech, he breezed over that I'll be his chief of staff, along with a few key names. I now sat 2 levels above Jane, and apparently within the 3 months I was not there, the other half of her team turned over. Every single person left. Gary was excited for me and said all nice things. However, Jane took the classless route and sent Big Shot an email about how I'm an unqualified idiot, that I used to work for her, how I tried to get her fired, and that she suspects I lied to get ahead. She didn't even try to be fake nice. Big Shot forwarded me her email and asked what this was about. I was so nervous and excited. Little did Jane know I was a director at Big Shot's competitor company and was already a level above her, so 2 levels isn't a big leap, and I worked with him for 5 years. I had an hour call with Big Shot and told him she was bad for the company culture and was a nasty person in general, but the evidence he needed was Gary confirming that her whole team has turned over, my prior resignation letter which was still sitting on my desktop when I logged in upon return, and a few other nasty emails she sent her recent staff, which they were happy to share with us. Big Shot fired Jane on Friday. The next story is titled, How I Got My Boss's Job and My Coworker a 15% Raise. To the backstory, this all happened in an EU country, I don't say which one, sorry. I did my apprenticeship in a mid to big size factory as a machine operator. After I completed my apprenticeship, I worked in the production for about 1 month. Then I got called into the office and they asked me if I can do some holiday replacements, so I said yes, why not better hours and clean work. I got taught some systems, which was pretty easy because I manufactured those parts for 1 year. After my coworker came back from their vacation, they asked me to stay and become a part of their team, so I said yes, sounds good. So I was now working in the sale quality department. Now to the present time, which is 7 years later. Our team increased from 5 workers to 15 because of reconstructing, which helped us a lot. My boss retired last fall, and after Christmas we got a new young boss around my age, 27, who was a major asshole and sexist. We got a few weeks before him a new hire, a lovely young girl, age 19, which I trained her. If you are new, you are doing some error, which is totally fine in my opinion. So I come in last Tuesday to hear my new boss screaming like a maniac at this young girl. I asked her what happened, and she said she filed the wrong form, which happens even to me. My boss noticed it and screamed at her. I paraphrase it. Boss, you stupid little slut, who dumb can you be to fill out the wrong form? I should fire you and make sure that you never find any work in this field again. Coworkers started crying at this point. Then my boss stormed into his office and slammed the door shut. I asked my coworker if she's okay, and she was still sobbing, so I brought her a coffee and took her to our office grandma. Everyone loves her so much. I was at this point pretty pissed and told everyone what happened. After they learned what he did to our new coworker, 3 stormed into his office and quit after 25 years in this company. My boss said to them that they are worthless and overpaid. They told us that, and a plan was formed. Everyone will quit except for me for now. What my boss didn't know yet is we had a huge customer audit happening in 3 weeks, which I am the only certified to prepare for. If we fail this, it would cost us 15 to 20 million euros, and the customer would pull the contract. So after my boss learned that the whole department quit, except for me, he was even more pissed. Boss, hey, why the hell did everyone quit? Me, maybe because you are asshole and a sexist pig. Boss, what did you just say, you asshole? Me, you know what I said, and do you remember the big audit in 3 weeks by customer X? Boss, yeah, what's about that? Me, you know that I am the only one certified to prepare it, right? Boss, yeah, and? Me, I quit as well because I do not want to work for such an asshole boss, see ya, and walked right out to my other coworkers to say goodbye in the whole factory. The production VP noticed it and asked what happened, so I told him and he was pissed. He called the CEO, which I knew pretty well, and said, Robert, the shit hit the fan, big time, come down to the production floor now. The CEO asked if it's important, and the VP said, if you want to pass the audit in 3 weeks, then move your ass down here now. So the CEO came running down with the entire C-suits and asked what's so important. Then I piped up and said our whole department quit today and won't come back until this motherfucker of boss gets removed and fired. Then they asked what happens, and we told them. They were mad and asked how they can fix it. I said fire him and fire a better fit. Because I held the most trainings and qualifications, they asked me, which I gladly said yes. So we took off to my new office with my old department and the CEO in town. My boss saw me and said arrogantly, decided to come back and beg for your job back, you little R-word? Me, nah, just to inspect my new office cause you are fired by now. He laughed and he said that I am under him and only the CEO can fire him. So the CEO came around the little corner and said to my boss, get the fuck out of my company, you are fired, and I make sure that every company knows what you did. My ex-boss was white as a sheet. After that, the CEO called the police and reported him trespassing. In the end, I got a 70k raise and a bonus option, which I declined and asked if we can split it for my coworkers. I don't need that much money, 1 million euro worth of bonuses. My CEO agreed and everyone got their job back, and we complete the audit without any fails. The customer was happy, and so we are too. The next story is titled, My Ex-Wife Learned the Hard Way to Not Ignore a Court Summons. I was married to a woman for 15 years and ended up divorcing her because she liked to sleep with other guys. While it took me 6 years to stumble onto this fact, I owe it to her being either or sociopath or a narcissist. She could absolutely turn on and off the charm and could come up with lies, staring you right in the eyes. Hindsight is 2020. Let's call her V, short for Voldemort, as one time when I was talking about her after the separation, I referred to her as she who must not be named, and the nickname stuck with all my friends and family. During the marriage, my ex and I were best friends with another couple, and for this post, we'll call them Sam and Mary. Sam still is my best friend. Mary was V's best friend. Mary had found out V's plans to cheat on me prior to me finding out and told V that she couldn't condone infidelity and their friendship would end if V did cheat on me. No, Mary did not tell me, and I don't blame her for not doing so. When I finally found out V was having a Facebook affair with some dude in CA, it was just 2 weeks before V was flying him out and putting him up in a hotel for 3 days. I spent those 2 weeks getting a lawyer and a private investigator and my exit strategy together. I left her the weekend after their hotel stay. She would spend the days with him and come home for the afternoon evening without a shred of guilt showing in her actions. The PI having gotten pics and videos of them leaving the hotel and eating lunch together and heading back to the hotel. I first stayed at Sam and Mary's in their in-law basement apartment, eventually moving to a small apartment back in the town where V lived. Fast forward 9 months and I'm divorced from V. We had one daughter, let's call her Rebecca. She was 13 at the time, who was still at home and were trying to share custody and live about a quarter-mile apart. There are other kids from the marriage, but they were living apart from us at that time and don't play a part in this part of the whole story. We had acquired a lake house during the marriage and had listed to sell, and we had it written into the divorce agreement to split the proceeds, but paying half the mortgage on that and the rent on my apartment was really stretching me thin financially. One day Mary emails me, subject line in all caps, "V just tried to get me fired." Long story short, V emailed Mary's boss claiming that Mary was gossiping about V on sales calls to customers, but her boss knew it was BS and told V as much. Wisely, Mary didn't mess around waiting to see what was next. She went to the local courthouse that day and filed for an anti-harassment order against V. It took several visits to the judge, as V chose to ignore multiple summons to court so that the judge could hear her side of the story. Eventually, the judge granted the order because V never showed up to court. During this time, V called 911 on me multiple times, one time claiming I put a letter bomb in her mailbox, and 2 other times I had entered her apartment without her permission. The letter bomb accusation was due to me posting a link to shipyourandmissglitter.com on Facebook months before and subsequently mailing her a thick bundle of forms to sign. Police were called and I had to go to V's apartment and open the letter in front of the police. Needless to say, there was no glitter, let alone a glitter bomb. The 2 times I had gone into her apartment had both been to drop off Rebecca's book bag when she had forgotten it at my apartment. Both times I had text from V granting me permission to open the door and put the book bag just inside. She would then text me after I had done so, trying to revoke permission, telling me I shouldn't have gone into her apartment and that she never gave me permission. To this day, I think V thinks that if she deletes messages on her end, the message is deleted on my end. Even though kids will be kids and Rebecca did forget her book bag at my place on at least one other occasion, I did not for V's ruse a 3rd time. All forgotten book bags were delivered by Rebecca and I meeting halfway between the apartments. Also included with the multiple 911 calls were multiple minor child wellness checks on evenings when I had Rebecca at my apartment. It's so much fun having to explain your child why the police are showing up at 8 at night to check up to see if she is okay. Basically, V was trying to rile me up, boil my blood so it looks like I'm the bad guy. Throughout this whole mess, Sam and Mary have been lifesavers to me and Rebecca, hosting and cooking weekly family dinners for us. They are Rebecca's godparents, and just being absolutely rock steady in their support and tolerance of the situation. Around this time, V filed for sole custody. At the strong urging of my lawyer, I insisted on a guardian ad litem being appointed to represent Rebecca's best interests, her being a minor child. Of course, the parents must pay the fees of the GAL. At this point, my finances are really getting worrisome, so I write an email to V saying we need to drop the price of the lake house and get that sold regardless of profit. I needed that off my back so I could continue to live where I could co-parent Rebecca as well as fight the custody battle. So there I am going deeper into debt, can't pay rent and mortgage long term, and V is starting another court battle for full custody. With no other choice, I moved back in with Sam and Mary so I can continue to pay my lawyer and keep fighting. About a week after I'm settled back in Sam and Mary, I hear from Rebecca that V's glass patio table was smashed the previous night. I was in NH that evening with witnesses, so it couldn't have been me. I was praying for Rebecca's cell phone, and we have Life 360 so we could know where each other was at any time. Plus it had history so I could at least prove my phone was in NH. Rebecca says she knows I was in NH and tells me she'll tell her mother it wasn't me. The next day, I was served with a restraining order, RO, reclaiming that I had vandalized B's patio furniture and that she still felt afraid due to the letter bomb incident. The RO was for 10 days and then I could show up in court and contest if being continued. The officer left with just a Class A license, smiling as he sighed. He was pretty sure I wasn't going to go on a rampage with a BB gun. The first thing I did the next day was to go to the police station and request all incident reports that involved me since I left her. I knew of 7 incidents, but the desk sergeant informed me they had 19 incidents reports from V. He talked to me a bit, clearly trying to get a feel for what kind of person I was and just what was going on. We parted company with him, assuring me that the patrol officers would now know what was going on and the PD would do right by me so long I kept my cool. Fair enough. 2 nights before the court appearance to contest the RO, Sam, Mary, and I are sitting on their porch drinking some beer and brainstorming about what I'm going to say to the judge. I'm a bit discouraged because I know it's going to be a he said she said situation and I'm living in Massachusetts. If your chromosomes don't match, you are a second-class citizen when it comes to parental rights in MA. Plus, V deserves an Oscar for how well she plays the victim. It wasn't looking good. Mary suddenly said, "Hey, let me see the RO." I handed it over to her. "Hey, this is my judge. She's the judge me the anti-harassment order against V." "You're kidding." Sam and I looked at each other in amazement. "I swear it is. Let me go get it." Mary goes inside and comes back a few minutes later with her court order. Sure enough, it's the same judge. My grin felt like it was going to split my lips. Now I know exactly what to do. Now for the meat of the story. The court date to contest the RO arrived and I'm there first thing, just me. No lawyer because he had to appear in court elsewhere. I strongly hoped that V wouldn't show up, but she did with someone other than her divorce lawyer, and before court was in session, her new lawyer approached me and offered to let the no contact order lapse, but wanted to not abuse order left in place. I politely declined her offer, stating I had nothing to warrant either order and that I wanted the judge to hear my argument. V's lawyer was taken aback by this a bit and then shrugged as if to say it's your funeral and walked back to where V was sitting. We went in front of the judge and V told her side of the story and I started telling mine, introducing all the incident reports from the police department, but V and lawyer didn't have copies of all of them, so the judge sent us back to the gallery to await a second call while V and her lawyer reviewed the reports. When we were called back, the judge started to go into the content of police reports and I stated that the content was almost irrelevant, but she insisted on going through them. During that, V emphasized the 2 incidents where I briefly entered V's apartments without her permission, but she characterized them as me doing so without her permission. I said that if necessary, I would be able to provide the communications where she gave me permission. When going through the first police report from the night, V tried to characterize me as having a multiple personality disorder, as told to her by our shared primary care physician. The judge asked her, "His doctor told you this without his permission?" "Yes, Your Honor," she replied. The judge looked at me, puzzled. I shrugged and said, while slowly shaking my head in disbelief, "I have a very close relationship with my doctor, and I highly doubt he would violate HIPAA." The judge didn't look fazed, but I think she got the message that V wasn't being entirely truthful. At that point, the last police report to go, I reminded her that my point wasn't the content, but that I thought V was using the courts to harass and intimidate me to make me look bad to the GAL, and I brought up that this isn't out of her character for V, as she has an anti-harassment order in place against her, put there by you, Your Honor. The judge blinked at that bit of info. I gave her the details and reminded her that V declined to show up at the multiple hearings. As I recounted the particulars of Mary's story, the judge squinted her eyes more and more, and her frown got deeper and deeper. She turned to V, and her voice was slow, cold, furry. Do you have an anti-harassment placed against you? V's voice was so small and weak. Yes, Your Honor. I still wanted to look at V's face to see her reaction, but I kept my eyes locked on the judge. The judge pointed at V. Why didn't you show up to the hearings? A pause as V struggled to find some excuse. Because I didn't want to, but the judge waved her to silence. I think that was the turning point, as I think she was going to grant their request for the do not abuse, but she turned to me and said sternly, I think there is a bit of this going on both sides, but clearly she wants you to stay out of her apartment. Never again, Your Honor. Restraining order terminated, and with a bang of her gavel, we are done. Because the RO was terminated, legally that meant it never happened. I got my Class A concealed carry license back the next day and ultimately won the custody battle, a large part of which was the termination of the RO. The next story is as follows. Background. At this point in the saga, having lost the custody battle, V is moving to NH to be with her then primary lover, now husband number 5. A detail that amuses me to this day is that he shares the same first name as the FB lover from CA as mentioned in my first post. I always refer to them as Paul number 1 and Paul number 2 when talking about them. Yes, I'm easily amused. About a month after the custody hearing, at which I got full custody of Rebecca, V and I had an email exchange in which we agreed that I would go to her apartment and take Rebecca's captain's bed and some of Rebecca's belongings the day before movers arrived to pack up Voldemort's stuff. She was moving 75 miles away to central NH, having burned pretty much every bridge in the area. As Sam drives the truck, he graciously agreed to come along to both help and to be a witness. So we get there around 7:20 p.m. and knock at the door. After a brief wait, V opens the door, iPhone glued to her ear. She suddenly mumbles something about her stuff is upstairs and then heads off to her second floor bedroom, weaving and mumbling something that made me stop and think. I didn't quite get it, but I recall thinking, I really cannot go in here at all without a witness. I stick my head out the door. Sam, come on, you need to come in with me. So we go in. Holy crap, it's a junkyard. It's not quite filthy, but it's beyond cluttered. But now V has disappeared into a room, complete with slamming the door, so it takes me a bit of wandering to find Rebecca's room. It's not just that she's in the middle of packing, but there is crap everywhere. Dust, cobwebs, tracked in dirt, unwashed dishes, empty boxes of wine, dry dog food, you get the idea. So Sam and I started gathering up Rebecca's stuff and take some stuff out to the car. I realize we need an Allen wrench to take apart the bed, so I go out to the car to get one and come back in. In the lull in activity, she had come back into the living area, but went right back into her bedroom as we climbed the stairs, phone still glued to her ear. It takes a bit, but we finally get the bed taken apart and have moved most of the stuff in Rebecca's room out to the front lawn. Without conferring, it's clear Sam and I both decided to get the stuff to the front lawn and worry about packing the vehicles after we're completely out of the house. It's at this point that it starts to get weird. Sam is carrying out the second to last load when V pops out of her bedroom door, out of the locks, out from the balcony and says, "Why are you taking stuff out of my house?" Sam drops what he's carrying and exits the house. He knew what was up instantly. I come out of Rebecca's room and V clearly didn't realize I was still there and say, "You agreed via email that we would take Rebecca's bed tonight." She looks startled and says, "Is that Rebecca's stuff?" "Of course it is. You said her stuff was in her room." I take what I'm carrying and go outside. Sam says, "Dude, that's not right. I have a bad feeling about this. We need to call the police." You're absolutely right. I could tell that Sam was expecting me to object, and he does a double take when he realized he wasn't going to have to convince me. Yes, Hi, my name is Jack Crow and I live at 321 Main Street here in Crowsville. While I'm talking to the police on the phone, I'm aware of V coming to the door and opening it, and becoming quite agitated as she realizes I'm talking to the police. By the time I finish the following explanation, she has slammed the door and is tromping around inside the living area, heatedly talking on her phone. I'm at my ex-wife's apartment getting some of my daughter's belongings as we had agreed via email, and while I'm getting the last of the stuff out of the house, she suddenly demanded, "Why are you taking stuff out of my house?" So in order to protect all parties, I'm asking that a police officer come by to verify with Miss Crow that she agreed to this and that she is fine with what we have removed from the house. They told me an officer was on the way. As I'm waiting for the officer to arrive, leaning nonchalantly against the front of Sam's truck, Sam is standing there next to me, just shaking his head. I'm going to call Mary and let her know what's going on. Right about here, V throws open the front door, muttering something about having not gotten all of Rebecca's stuff, and proceeds to deposit another laundry basket piled high with clothes and other items on the front stoop, and then disappears back inside. I start to whistle. Pop goes the weasel. Most of the stuff we moved is still sitting on the front lawn. We leave it there. After about 5 minutes, the officer arrives. He steps out of the patrol SUV and I slowly approach him, arm extended to shake his hand. "Good evening, officer. I'm Jack Crow." "Evening, Mr. Crow. Allie Johnson." We shake hands. I give him a brief explanation of the situation and he comments that I was right to call him and that he'll go speak to V. He's up there for about 2 minutes and then he comes back down. "You guys are good to go." We briefly chat with him, apologize for having to get him involved, and he replies, "No, you did the right thing." I liked him a lot after that. We start loading the rest of the stuff and he asks, "How much more is in the house?" "Nothing, it's all out here. Except that laundry basket on the stoop that Miss Crow brought out while we were waiting for you." "Oh, good, I can't sit here all night. If you guys are good to go, I'll take off." "Wait, what's that?" "What's that?" "I think I saw a phone in that basket." He shines his flashlight on laundry basket on the front stoop. I walk up to the basket. An iPhone is sitting on the top of it. I pick it up and it looks like Rebecca's old iPhone 4. "It's my daughter's old phone. I'll just take it with us." I carry the basket down on my car and put it in the back seat. Just as I'm walking away, it rings. Incoming call from V's landline. I realize it's V's phone. I pick it up and answer it. "Hello?" Click. I look at the front. There's a text from her boyfriend on the lock screen. "Is he gone yet?" "Yep, it's her phone." I wave down the officer. "Wait, officer, I was wrong. It's Miss Crow's phone. Could you return it to her?" He takes it from me and returns it to V at the front door and walks back down to us. "Okay, you are still good to go. I'm going to go now. If you could, swing by again in 15 to 20 minutes. If we're still here, you might want to pull in and make sure we're still okay." Not 5 minutes after, he pulls out, and while we're still loading stuff, Veen again pops out of the front door, phone glued to her ear. "Is the officer still here?" "No." "Get him back." "Why?" "I want him back." "Get him." And back inside she goes. I'm briefly tempted to tell her, "If you want the cop back, you call for him," but that little voice in my head says, "You call," so I redial Crowsville's finest and request that Officer Johnson return to the address. Again, Sam and I assume our waiting positions at the front of the truck. A few minutes later, Officer Johnson arrives. He grins at me. "She just came out the front door just after you left asking for the police to be called." "I'll go see what she wants." He goes up there and V hands him her phone. He talks for a few minutes, hangs up the phone, continues speaking with V for 20 more seconds, and then returns to us. I look at him quizzically. "No worries, guys, you're still good to go, but I'm going to stay here until you're done." I continues to give him the raised eyebrow. "She wanted to accuse you of trying to steal her phone, but I pointed out to her that I was the one to notice it in the baskets you hadn't touched yet, and that you were the one to ask me to return it to her. Just finish up, guys. We all want to get home where it's warm." We finished up and we all shook hands and got out of there.